Okay, guys, what's going on? We're going to continue reading through sefer Yemey Shmuel that we've been doing. I'm not sure if this is part 5 or 6 or whatever. I'm probably not even going to say like what part we're up to. I'm just going to keep reading, but obviously that will be in the description of the video. So we finished off the last video. We were talking about how the World War One, not the World War One, World War One started, and Rabbi Horowitz is now going to tell us about what Tzfat was like during World War One. So it says over here at the beginning of the war, Rabbi Horowitz says that my father, he had a nadan, which I guess was like some sort of paycheck or it's not like a dowry, but I don't know. I guess whatever. He had 70 punt, which is I guess a lot of money back then, and he already had bought with this money sacks of sugar. What's it called? And he hid them in many different places because the Turkish government would search for people who had sugar and things like that, and they would take it for themselves because I guess they wanted to feed their soldiers. I guess supplies were low. It was a different time back then, and people were scared to hold on to their stuff. So we couldn't really hide it, all, by different people. He's saying, so we had to sell it slowly but surely. And afterwards, sugar became extremely expensive. You couldn't even find any at all. And also, he said that oil became very expensive. Which is called neft, a certain type of oil, and you wouldn't be able to. You couldn't even use it at all to light like a lamp or anything. Only with regular candles, with oil candles or wax candles or whatever. And this also became very expensive, he says, until we were forced to just use the light of the moon and to cook on coals and wood, just like way back in the day. And all the houses became black from smoke. And in Yerushalayim, they didn't even have coals and wood, so in Yerushalayim, it says that they would break the furniture into wood, and that's how they cooked. And there was no rice, potatoes, tea, coffee, all types of food. And there was mamish ra'av, there was mamish a famine, Rahman al-Litzan. And he talks about how they had to pay for their apartment, and Rabbi Shmuel was basically saying their situation was not good at all. And he said by regular people, when you would be able to get a piece of bread for Shabbos, that was like considered a huge thing, like a Yeshua Gedalah. And then of course wheat became expensive because the German government emptied out Eretz Yisrael from all types of food. I guess the Germans were there too. They took all the oils and the tefua, the wheat, the grains, and oils and fats. Not the fats, sorry. I'm thinking about like carbonates over here. Wines. And whatever was left over, the grasshoppers came and ate it. Because they had like grasshopper attacks back then. Not grasshopper, what am I saying? They had a lot of grasshoppers. What's it called? Arbe. And so it was not a good situation. And also he says, Rabbi Shmuel says that the businessman had a great chelik in causing this hunger, because they because they upped the price on everything. And all the koils also stopped chutz, except for the koil of Austria and Germany. And he says my family, we were shaykh to the koil of Chabad, who says that all of their money came from Russia. So obviously everything stopped. We didn't have any food. It was mamish bad. And he says, we were only able to get chatichas lechem dura, a piece of bread made from dura, which is made from corn flour, which is like basically food for chickens. He says, gamzeh how you built and it wasn't even baked good, and it would destroy your stomach, and many people were dying each day from the dever, v'hatifus, v'hara, from typhus also, and from disease, and from famine. And also the doctors from the government that was back then, they would kill with their sam hamavis, with poison. Anybody who was sick with typhus, would be killed, because they didn't want them to get infect others. And they would bring people to the hospital, and they would bring them in, and on the way out, and they would go out the other side with them dead. He says Tzfat was slowly emptying out from people just from dying. And he says that they didn't even let us be mitar the mesim, and to put on tachrichim, burial shrouds. They would just mamish put them inside like sid, mud, whatever, clay, whatever it was, and they would just put them in the cave like that. But he says that we tried, and we were able to bribe, so that we were able to give some kavod to the mesim by doing a tahara. We were able to bring them out from their kfarim, and then do a tahara and all these things through bribery. And the doctors would go from house to house to look for sick people and to bring them to the hospital, because people were scared to bring them to the hospital. They didn't want to bring them to the hospital, because we were scared that that the doctors were going to kill them because they had typhus. And also, he says, Rabbi Horowitz says that this is how my Rabbi Noach died, Rabbi Noach Shlomo. Before this, his wife died, and one of his sons died, and he had orphans now that were starving. And then my grandmother, Maras Devorah Bas Rav Shmuel Heller, Rav Shmuel Heller's daughter, Devorah, got sick, and this was on Shabbos. And my mother and other people were there to visiting her, and all of a sudden, a Jewish doctor, Dr. Green, came to their house together with my uncle Mar Beryl, who was the brother of my father, who was a pharmacist, who knew about refuahs and all these things. And they checked her, and they told her to go to the hospital. I guess like a different doctor checked her, and then they came to like check on her to give her medicine or whatever like that. He said that we were able with great hishtadlus to let her stay in the house, because we didn't want to obviously put her in the hospital. We couldn't, because they were going to kill her. And we also hired a woman who already had typhus and was not dying at all to take care of her. And nobody else went inside of her, so that they wouldn't get sick. And when she did take a refuah, she went out of her mind. Rahman al-Islam. This is like intense things, man. And afterwards, when the hospital was passed over to the Jews, Makom Achshav hu Beis Cholim Hadassah, which is close to where I live now, which is now Tzfat College. So then we already told her to go to the hospital, and she went there, but she didn't. Her days did not last long until she passed away there. On one of the days of the month of Iyar, on a Friday after Chatzos, and my mother was sick with her eyes in our house, and I sat with her. And it was just intense, and we found that she died, and okay. Sounds like Tzfat was not doing too well during World War I. At the same time, I entered into learning the Talmud Torah of Amsterdam. and there was many tsaras from the Turkish army. Every morning, early morning, they would come to the houses, and they would search for many different things. They also wanted to make sure everybody was clean, because they said that the typhus came because people were not clean. And if the house was not clean in their eyes, or everybody was clean, whatever, they would take the balabais of the house to the mountain where the wall of Tzfat was, which was their place. They would give him 30 makos, and that's that. So I know there's a place called Moshav Tzfat, but I don't know what is Chomat Tzfat. So we're just going to look that up for a second while I'm here, because I like looking up these random little things.